Most people who are always strong didn't choose the role. They were assigned it before they were old enough to decline. There's a particular kind of exhaustion that doesn't show on the outside. The person carrying it still shows up, still handles what needs handling, still knows what to say when someone else is falling apart. From the outside, they look like someone who has it together. From the inside, they've been holding their breath for so long, they've forgotten what it feels like to exhale. This is what the role does over years. Not dramatically, not all at once. Gradually, the way a structure develops invisible fractures long before anything visibly breaks. The role usually begins as a necessity, not a choice. Somewhere early, in a family that needed someone steady, in a dynamic where someone had to be the adult, in a relationship where the other person's instability quietly required your stability as its counterweight. You learned that your feelings were a secondary concern, not because anyone said so directly, because the room didn't have space for them. Someone else was always in more visible pain. Someone else always needed more urgent attention. So you became capable. You became reliable. You became the one people called. And that became your identity before you were old enough to question whether it was a choice. The loneliness inside this role is specific and rarely spoken about. It isn't the loneliness of being alone. The strong one is almost never alone. They're surrounded by people who need them, appreciate them, depend on them. The loneliness is more precise than that. It's the experience of being known only in one dimension, of having people understand you as a function, the capable one, the calm one, the one who handles things, without ever being curious about what's underneath that, of realizing quietly that the relationships you're in are structured in a way that doesn't leave room for your own fragility, not because people are cruel, because they've been unconsciously trained by your consistency to believe you don't have any. You taught them that, not on purpose, by never letting them see otherwise. There's a particular moment many people in this role reach, usually alone, usually late, usually after handling something else for someone else. A moment where the weight becomes briefly visible to themselves, where something surfaces that doesn't have a name yet. Not quite sadness, not quite anger, something older than both. The recognition that they have been enormously present for other people's lives while being quietly absent from their own. That moment usually passes quickly. There's always something else to attend to. But it leaves a mark, and it comes back. And each time it does, it stays a little longer. What the role costs isn't obvious from the outside because the currency is invisible. It costs the experience of being held, of bringing something incomplete to another person and having them sit with it rather than look to you to resolve it, of being in a moment of genuine difficulty and not having to manage how that moment lands for everyone around you. It costs the kind of intimacy that requires mutual vulnerability, which means, practically, that many people in this role have relationships that are warm, loyal, and deeply unequal in ways that are never directly addressed. They are loved. They are also, in a specific way, unreachable, because the architecture of every relationship was built around their strength, and nobody, including them, has ever tested whether it could hold something else. The deeper cost is identity. After years in the role, it becomes genuinely difficult to locate where the strength ends and the person begins. Who are you when nobody needs anything? What do you want when the question isn't what does everyone else need? What does rest feel like when it isn't just the gap between one responsibility and the next? These aren't rhetorical questions. They're disorienting ones, because the strong one often built their entire sense of self-worth inside this role. And the idea of stepping out of it, even briefly, carries an irrational but very real fear that without the function, there is no reason to be valued, that the love they receive is contingent on the service they provide. That fear is worth examining carefully, because it's almost always inherited, not accurate. What becomes possible when you finally let someone else hold something is difficult to describe to someone who hasn't experienced it. It isn't weakness. It doesn't feel like relief at first. It feels like danger. The first time you say, "I don't know what to do," and don't follow it with a solution. The first time you let someone see you uncertain, without immediately resolving the uncertainty for their comfort. The first time you stay in a moment of your own pain long enough for another person to actually reach you. Something shifts, not in who you are, in what you believe is allowed. You discover that the people worth keeping don't need you to be unbreakable, that your value to them was never actually located in your strength, that what they wanted, what they were always waiting for, was you, not the function, the person underneath it who has been quietly running on empty for a very long time. The strength was never the problem. It's real, it's yours, and the world genuinely needs it. The problem was the belief that it had to be the only thing you brought to the room. You were never just strong. You were also someone who needed, and longed, and tired, and wondered if anyone would ever notice. That person deserves the same quality of presence you've been giving everyone else. It's not too late to let them be seen.